Hi there, I'm Amy West, Assistant Fire Chief with the Municipality of Jasper Fire Department and a local FireSmart representative for the community of Jasper. In this video, we will discuss what the Wildland-Urban Interface is, the risk of living in a wildland-urban interface setting, and how we can implement FireSmart activities to our properties to help reduce that risk. Historically, we have described the wildland-urban interface as the line, area, or zone where structures and other human development meet or intermingle with undeveloped wildland or vegetative fuels. This led to a common misbelief that the wildland-urban interface was only the edge of communities. However, nowadays we know that the wildland-urban interface is anywhere structures are located and could be ignited by the flames, radiant heat, or embers of a wildland fire, making all the homes in our community at the same level of risk. Wildland vegetation may be composed of dense forest, but it could also be brush, grasslands, or a mixture of these. In Jasper, we are surrounded by many kilometers of solid forest in all directions. Winds flow through the mountain valleys and can carry a fire towards the town. And thanks to the effects of the mountain pine beetle in our area, the forest is even more likely to burn with extreme intensity should a wildland fire occur. The vegetation, together with homes and man-made surroundings, create conditions that bring the potential for buildings to ignite, either from the flames or radiant heat of a wildfire, or more commonly from the embers generated by a distant wildfire. In a wildland-urban interface fire, all vegetation, both natural and cultivated, buildings and structures, attachments such as fences, decks, and outbuildings, infrastructure such as bridges, power lines, and pump stations, and other items like vehicles, boats, firewood, and other store materials are all potential fuel for the fire. For simplicity, these fuels are typically divided into two main categories. The first being wildland fuels, which includes all types of vegetation, and the second being built fuels, meaning all buildings and infrastructure. These fuels all have different burning characteristics, and when combined, they create uniquely complex conditions that affect the ignition and spread of fire that is different from both an isolated structure fire and an isolated wildland fire. When we take a look at a lot of our residential properties here in Jasper, you will find that most of you will have a combination of both of these fuel types right in your own yard. Any developed area where there is a combination of human development and vegetation has the potential to result in negative impacts from wildfire on the community. Understanding the complexities of these combined fuels helps us to begin to understand the unique and often overwhelming challenges that a wildland-urban interface fire can present, and can help us take preventative actions to reduce the risk of fire spread and fire damage. The Municipality of Jasper and Parks Canada have been working closely together since 2001 to manage wildland fuel conditions around the town site and increase our joint capabilities in order to reduce the risk of wildfire losses in our town. Together, we have focused on minimizing the potential impacts of a wildfire by removing forest fuels in and around the edge of town. The purpose of the current maintenance projects is to reduce the buildup of forest fuels in previously treated areas caused by the natural process of forestry growth, as well as the forest that's affected by the mountain pine beetle. The map pictured here shows parcels that have been treated through FireSmart initiatives between 2003 to present. As you will see, these areas include the forested areas immediately bordering the town and our surrounding populated areas. While these preventative measures will hopefully help to slow fire travel towards the town, the risk of in-town ignitions due to flying embers and hot ash is still a major concern. The vast majority of homes lost in serious wildland-urban interface events are ignited directly by embers that fall onto the homes, or embers that start small fires close to the home and creep up towards the structure. The best way to reduce the chance of these types of ignitions is to FireSmart the properties within the town site. Structural ignition occurs when the fuel transitions from wildland fuels into built fuels, typically when wildfire embers kindle vulnerable parts of a structure. Although the risk is perceived to be higher on the edge of a community or neighborhood, as I mentioned previously, this is far from true. The fact that embers are driven by the wind for kilometers ahead of the fire makes homes in the center of town just as vulnerable as those on the edge of town. And with the size and geographical layout of our town, every home in Jasper is likely to be subjected with hundreds of flaming or smoldering embers if a wildfire is burning in our park. This is a problem that cannot be solved by sending more firefighters, more equipment, or bigger aircraft to attack the wildfire. The key message is that solving the wildfire threat to our community depends very much on what happens before the fire occurs and what happens in our own backyards. Wildfire strikes fast, and when it spreads into urban areas, not every home can be attended to or defended by the fire department. However, communities whose residents take steps to reduce their vulnerability have a greater chance at surviving the wildfire. So, how do we reduce the risk to our homes? Post-fire studies, experiments, and models have shown that homes typically ignite due to the condition of the home itself and everything around it up to 100 meters from the foundation. FireSmart principles are designed to mitigate a home's vulnerability to wildfires, starting with the structure itself and working outwards to that 100-meter mark. For FireSmart purposes, the treated areas have been broken into 4 zones. The non-combustible zone, which is your house itself and the very immediate surroundings. Priority Zone 1, which is essentially the rest of your yard for most in-town properties. Then Priority Zone 2, which extends 30 meters from the home, so will likely include areas outside of your property line and extending into your neighbor's property or even some public areas. And lastly, Priority Zone 3 extends up to 100 meters from your home, and obviously this will include much more than just your property. As you will catch on, in an urban setting, Priority Zones 2 and 3 will often overlap and involve more than just one property owner. This is why community buy-in of FireSmart principles is so important. So as mentioned, the first zone is the non-combustible zone, which is considered to be the most critical zone. This zone includes your house itself, any attached structures such as a deck, as well as a minimum of 1.5 meters out from the structure in all directions. This area should be cleared of all combustibles, and extra measures can be implemented to help prevent home ignition. For residential properties, this is where we can make the biggest impact. So starting with the house itself, we should scan the structure from top to bottom, paying attention to anything that could pose a risk for ignition, starting with the roof. Assess the roof material for combustibility and ember entry points. Non-combustible roof materials such as a tin roof, clay tiles, or rated asphalt shingles are going to provide better protection against embers. Cedar shakes may look very nice, but they will put your roof and your home at the highest risk for roof ignition. Then we're going to look at the roof cleanliness as well. Accumulated leaves, moss, and overhanging branches can sustain ignition. Gutters should be cleaned and kept free of leaves, pine needles, or any other materials that might accumulate. We're also going to check our eaves, vents, and soffits. Openings allow embers, heat, and flames to enter any vents or openings, including attic accesses, and these should all have a fine mesh covering as to not allow embers to enter into these spaces. The same would go for any crawl spaces or accesses around the foundation of your house. Vinyl soffits can melt easily. Metal or aluminum soffit is the best option for FireSmart principles. Wood or composite would even be preferable over vinyl. Next, we're going to look at the exterior walls. Combustibility varies by material. Embers may lodge in between siding panels, and certain materials may melt and expose the inner combustibles. Vinyl siding is going to be the most vulnerable, as it can melt easily from radiant heat and can even ignite and burn fiercely when exposed to direct flame or even convective heat. Whereas stucco or cement boarding will give your walls the highest level of protection. Decks, porches, and balconies. So combustibility, again, will vary by material, but what is stored on your deck is the bigger concern than the actual decking material itself. Keep your deck area clean of clutter or storage. Properly store your patio cushions when they're not in use. And material or vegetation underneath the deck should be replaced with rock or gravel, or you can actually enclose your deck with a non-combustible skirting. So embers can also lodge into any nooks and crannies, and then if the deck, porch, or its contents ignite, they can act as a wick to spread fire towards the structure. Windows and doors are potential entry points for embers and radiant heat as well. Tempered glass or multi-pane windows will provide additional protection during wildfire conditions. Window screens that are free of holes or tears will also help improve performance against the radiant heat and will obviously minimize the size and number of embers that could potentially enter the home through these openings. Ensure that the ceiling and weather stripping around your windows and doors are in good condition. Any gaps or cracks around the top, bottom, or edges of doorways can allow embers and radiant heat to enter into the home. During wildfire conditions, when leaving your house, always ensure that all windows are closed tightly. Nearby combustibles, which are in the immediate proximity of the house, can also cause serious ignition potential. So this is that 1.5 meters outwards in all directions from your home. This includes coniferous shrubs or trees, firewood, window boxes, furniture, scrap lumber, or just your general stuff. Any of these things can generate embers and heat, which may lead to a home ignition. So when looking at the non-combustible zone, it's important that we remove all stored items and relocate them to a safer area, as well as remove all combustible landscaping features such as wood mulch and juniper or other coniferous vegetation. Replace your cedar or wood mulch with rock, stone, alternative rubber products, or bare mineral soil or shortcut moist grass. While some deciduous or leafy plants or bushes may be fine if they're kept well groomed, all coniferous trees in the immediate zone should be removed, and we do encourage all vegetation to be removed from that 1.5 meter mark. So to aid in your home assessment, you can download the FireSmart Begins at Home app. It's available for all smartphones and devices. And this app is full of great resources to help you FireSmart your property, and also has a home assessment tool that will walk you through the assessment process and provide you recommendations based on what they find. Alternatively, you can also contact the Jasper Fire Department for assistance with the home assessment, and one of our local FireSmart representatives can go through the assessment with you. So now that our main structure is FireSmart, we will look at priority zone 1, which is that from the 1.5 meter mark outwards to the 10 meters. So 10 meters from the house, which is approximately 30 feet. For most residential lots, this will be the vast majority of your yard. Because of this, it may be difficult to relocate many items, but we should try to create a landscape that will not allow or aid in fire to easily reach our home. We can do this by relocating any stored materials, such as firewood, to zone 2 if the space allows, or if not, then to the furthest edge of zone 1 that your lot allows. We should also remove the coniferous fuels, or at least ensure coniferous trees are groomed to remove any ladder fuels up to 2 meters. Grass should be kept short and well watered, and when not in use, patio furniture and other items should be stored in a shed or other safe location. If you have an outbuilding, such as a shed or garage in this zone or anywhere on your property, the same measures should be taken on these structures as you would on your house. Priority zone 2 is the area 10 meters from our home, extending outward to 30 meters. And for in-town properties, this may include parts of the areas that our properties back onto as well. So some of our neighbors' properties are also going to fall into this zone, especially our shared fence lines. So many properties in Jasper will back onto forested areas, especially for those of you who live on the west side of Benham or Cabin Creek. And for those of us with smaller yards, priority zone 2 will include some of these forested and green spaces as well. For outlying properties, there may be items such as large propane tanks located in this zone, and it is important to keep the vegetation around these tanks well maintained and not impinging or touching the tank. Coniferous trees in these areas need to be pruned to remove the ladder fuels, again up to 2 meters, and this will help reduce the chance of fire catching in the trees and keep the fire on the ground, which makes it easier for the firefighters to manage. Ground cover that includes juniper shrubs, cedar bushes, or other highly combustible vegetation should also be removed, and grass should be kept under 10 centimeters. Lastly, we have priority zone 3, and this is the area 30 meters to 100 meters from your home. This will mainly include the forested and green areas surrounding our neighborhoods, and as discussed previously, will also include vast overlap with our neighbors' properties. As an individual homeowner residing in town, there may not be a lot that you can do on your own in this zone. However, this is where community collaboration comes largely into play. Treatment in this zone again includes thinning coniferous trees and pruning to remove ladder fuels up to the 2 meter mark to help reduce the chance of fire catching in the trees, and once again keeping the fire to the ground and easier to manage. Ground cover that includes juniper shrubs or the other highly combustible vegetations should also be removed whenever possible. And if tree removal is needed in this zone or any zone, a professional arborist may be required to do it safely. And being in a national park, the proper assessments and permits required by Parks Canada will also need to be obtained. Much of the work in this zone should be done through neighborhood and community work bees, which the fire department can obviously help you to arrange and also help supervise with and assist with. FireSmart is only effective when everyone buys in. So because of the overlapping zones in urban areas, when your property is not maintained, it also puts your neighbors' homes at risk. It is important to communicate with your neighbors and identify ways in which we can all work together to reduce the risks. One way to achieve this is by engaging in the FireSmart Community Recognition Program. So this program is designed to encourage local self-organized groups of neighbors to implement solutions for wildfire safety by engaging and supporting homeowners, community leaders, and other residents in shared efforts to protect people and our properties from wildfire. Citizen involvement is the cornerstone of the FireSmart Canada Community Recognition Program. So as participants in the program, you and your neighbors will learn how to decrease the risk of losing your homes and how to best protect yourselves in the event of a wildfire, as well as gain useful knowledge and skills to prepare for a wildfire before it actually occurs. The FireSmart Communities program offers residents a unique opportunity to implement FireSmart practices that are specifically tailored to the needs of your neighborhood. The program utilizes the following three-legged template. So where higher wildfire hazard levels are assessed within a community or upon request to a FireSmart Canada or a local FireSmart representative will contact your community or your neighborhood spokesperson to provide information about living with wildfire risk, including risk mitigation information tailored specifically to your community or your neighborhood. With the assistance of the local FireSmart representative, you and your neighbors will form a cooperating network to assess the wildfire hazards around you, and you and your neighbors will work together to identify and implement local solutions for these risks. What are the benefits of being a FireSmart community? While the benefits can vary, there are a number of positive outcomes experienced by communities that become members of the FireSmart Communities program. Being FireSmart creates a defensible space that prevents fires from advancing and endangering your homes and your lives. It reduces the probability that wind-driven embers falling far ahead of a wildfire will ignite a fire on or around your home. It will improve your community relationships. It will allow firefighters to more effectively manage our often limited resources. And when adequately prepared, homes have often survived a wildfire without any intervention of the fire department. Even a few preventative actions can prove to be critical. And obviously, it also offers a peace of mind, knowing that your home is prepared to survive a wildfire in the event that one should occur. So how can your community become a recognized FireSmart community? Ultimately, it all begins with you. Becoming FireSmart takes time and coordination with your neighbors and others, but getting started is actually quite straightforward. The FireSmart Communities program offers flexibility in creating the most appropriate plan and actions for your community or your neighborhood, and you will find that the efforts expended reaps many long-term rewards. Following these steps, your community will be on its way to becoming FireSmart. So first, you'll need to contact FireSmart Canada. A community representative, being either you or another interested member of your neighborhood, phones FireSmart Canada or can phone the fire department and request a meeting with a local FireSmart representative. Second will be a site visit. So at an agreed upon time, your local FireSmart representative will visit your area and assess for wildfire hazards. This visit will be coordinated between you and the local fire department. The third step is community representation. So a community champion, again, this could be you or one of your neighbors, will recruit others from your neighborhood to create a FireSmart community board. Aside from other homeowners, this group could also include renters in your neighborhood, land managers or landlords, fire professionals, planners, and members of other interested groups. Next is the assessment and evaluation. So upon completing a wildfire hazard assessment and evaluation of the neighborhood's current status, the local FireSmart representative, or also known as an LFR, will schedule a meeting with your local FireSmart board to present the assessment for review and acceptance by the board. If accepted, the process will continue, and if not, then it's terminated and other paths will be investigated. Your local FireSmart your local FireSmart board will then develop area-specific solutions to these fire issues based on the LFR's report. All members of the FireSmart board must concur with the final plan. The FireSmart plan is presented to and approved by a provincial FireSmart liaison, and the LFR representative may work with you or your community board to seek project implementation funds if that's needed as well. The next step then is to implement the determined solutions, so carrying out the plan from your FireSmart community plan by following a scheduled design that your board will set, and your board will also be responsible for maintaining the program into the future. So this will mean implementing a work bee or community collaboration to actually implement those steps that have been identified. So once the above steps have all been completed and initiatives have been put in place, the community or neighborhood may then apply for recognition by submitting an application form along with the completed FireSmart community plan and event documentation to your local FireSmart representative, who will then submit it to FireSmart Canada. Lastly, annual renewal of your recognition is completed by submitting documentation of your community's continued participation. So meaning that you have to have at least one event annually and continue to implement these tactics and maintain the FireSmart initiatives. And this can easily be accomplished through an online form. So for more information on these steps, visit firesmartcanada.ca or refer to the brochure that your local FireSmart representative can provide. One last thing I would like to mention today is the common question that we receive regarding wildfire sprinkler systems. So many of you have inquired about installing these systems at your properties, and although this is an additional measure that you could take to give your property some added protection, it is really important to note that they are only effective when combined with FireSmart guidelines, and they will not save your property on their own. Sprinkler systems can prove to increase the chance of survival, and there are many options available for residents to pursue, but just remember that these systems are just one more tool in the toolbox. Fuel reduction and FireSmart activities must be done in order for these sprinkler systems to actually be effective. So the fire department does also have structural protection trailers, which include sprinkler systems and other equipment. However, our equipment is limited, and even with the help of our neighboring agencies would not be enough to protect the entire town. Our priorities are the critical infrastructure within the town site, followed by savable properties. So this means that firefighters will first protect the buildings that are essential to the operation and the recovery of the community. And then from there, they will triage the homes to determine which properties would stand a chance against fire and be the best use for our equipment. Savable properties means those that will not require a large amount of time or resources for the fire department to efficiently protect. When homeowners implement FireSmart initiatives on their properties and on their homes and in their yards, it will help reduce the risk of ignition to our home and will also help us to make the most of our equipment and add to the best possible chance of protecting our town. And in conclusion, I just wanted to provide a couple of visual examples of how, when implemented properly, FireSmart measures do actually work. Both of these photos are real-life examples of FireSmart properties which withstood the ravages of a surrounding wildfire. So both properties were well maintained by the homeowners in accordance with the FireSmart guidelines, and then were triaged as savable by the firefighters who were performing structural protection during the wildfire event. In the bottom photo, the homeowner had installed their own sprinkler system as an additional measure during their FireSmart initiatives on their property. And in the top photo, the homeowners followed the FireSmart guidelines only, making their property savable. And as you can see, taking action around your home before the fire actually does work. So both of these properties are still in very good shape following the fire. So if you would like more information or assistance on how you can become FireSmart or how to pursue the FireSmart community program, please contact the Jasper Fire Department and we will connect you with one of our local FireSmart representatives. So thank you very much for taking the time to watch this video and for committing to help keeping Jasper protected from wildfire. We look forward to working with you.